Angel food cake. Welcome to Sanjeev Kapoor's Khazana. This is Chef Anil Rohira. And today we are going to make an angel food cake. Wow. So when you think of angels, what comes to your mind? Let me think, I can visualize white, light, airy, flying, beautiful. So when I talk or when I use all these descriptors, they're exactly what angel food cake is. A nice light cake with a very light, moist and white interior. Let me walk you quickly through the ingredients before we start making it. Refined flour, egg whites, sugar, vanilla, almond extract, a little bit of salt, egg white powder. Now you probably are wondering what happens if I don't have an egg white powder, or is there any other ingredients I can use to substitute that? No problems. If you do not have egg white powder, the primary function of the egg white powder is to strengthen the protein a little bit. So if you don't have egg white powder, no sweat. You can take your eggs, crack them, separate the whites, and keep them overnight on your kitchen counter or keep them in a warm place, just so that some of the water evaporates and you're left with a slightly higher protein content in your eggs, because the structure in this cake comes from your egg whites and flour. So we're going to create a meringue, but be very careful. We do not overwhip or overmix the meringue. If that happens, we're going to end up with a very dense and a very closed and a very heavy texture. That's not something we want. We want a very moist, light and delicate texture. So let me show you how that's done. We're going to take our egg whites and put it in the mixing bowl. So now that we have two different quantities of sugar, one we are going to sift with the flour. So that's our refined flour. When I talk of refined flour, I'm talking about something like between a cake and a pastry flour or an all-purpose flour. You do not want to use a heavier flour, because then you'll end up with a very dense and elastic texture, which we do not want. So this is our pastry flour and sugar. We will sift this together. Make sure the sugar is not too coarse. If it is too coarse, I recommend it quickly mixing it in your machine or a RoboCube or a grinder and reducing the particle size. So this one here is pretty good. I'm going to mix the second quantity of sugar with my egg white powder. And I'm going to start mixing my meringue now slowly. The first step is to make sure that your water in the egg whites and the protein tends to come together. So just mix it for a couple of seconds till the egg whites are a little bit homogenized before you start adding the sugar. Okay, now I see that the egg whites are starting to come together. I'm getting a little bit of a foam or a little bit of a aeration going on here. This is the time when I'm going to start adding my sugar. So make sure you put all your sugar in, nice easy stream. And then some of the salt. Now I know, you might be asking me, Chef, why are you putting all the sugar in at once? It's possible that you must have seen some recipes or some procedures where the sugar goes in a little at a time. Well, in an angel food cake, you want a very uniform structure of the cake inside. And that is possible when all the sugar in the recipe dissolves at the same time. So do not add parts of sugar and then at the end you have a lot of sugar left over that you put in. It's best you put all the sugar in at once in a slow, easy, steady stream. You can see the foam is starting to develop. I have a nice development of a meringue. Do not overmix it, because like I mentioned earlier, any overmixing will cause a separation, and you want the texture of the meringue to be nice and fluid and soft. So it's very easy to fold in the flour and the sugar. And now it's time to put in the almond and the vanilla. Wow. It's nice and shiny and luscious and silky. You can see the development of the meringue is beautiful. You want to give the sugar some time to dissolve evenly. So I'm going to mix it at a gentle pace. And let's just check the texture of the meringue. Wow, it's ready. I think you do not want to overmix it any more than it is now. It has a nice flowing action to it. You do not want to mix it to a point where it's excessively stiff. Because if it's very stiff, it's not going to pour into your cake pans and it's not going to bake evenly. You're going to have these very stiff, dense pockets of meringue in your cake pan. You want to make sure you keep it nice and soft and smooth. You see the shine and the texture? It's flowing really well. That's the texture you're looking for. Now we're going to fold in our last components, which is the flour and the sugar. So to facilitate that, I'm going to pour this out. You see the texture? It's almost like a cloud, huh? Nice and light and airy. At the same time, it's not too loose either. See that? Now I'm going to add this in 3 parts. So you dust a little, 1/3 on top. And the folding is important. You see, nice and easy motions. And you see the egg whites or the meringue is working with me. It's not offering any resistance for me to fold in the flour. Here's the second addition. You want to have nice and smooth and easy motions. Do not get aggressive while mixing. Keep your hands nice and light. It's almost coming together. You can see the texture. As simple a recipe this is, believe me, it's very, very important or critical that you keep a nice texture of the meringue. That's half your battle there. If you overmix the meringue, the texture of the cake is going to be very dense. And almost there. You see, if you do it right, you have not lost any volume in the mixing process. And you end up with a nice, smooth, uniform, luscious, silky cake batter. Before you start mixing, before you start working, please make sure your oven is preheated to 180 degrees Celsius. Now that our cake batter is ready, you see, we're going to take loaf pans or cake molds and we're going to pour the batter in. Now these molds or these pans have not been treated. These are non-stick pans. You can also use aluminum pans if you have, but please do not spray any oil, do not spray any grease in there, because you want the angel food cake to hold on to the sides of the mold and climb up. So we are not doing anything to the molds. You see how important the consistency is, because now you can pour the batter into the cakes. It's not offering any resistance. So you fill it about, I would say, 60% way up. And if your meringue's nice and stable, if you mixed it well, you should not lose any volume. I'm going to make sure it's on the sides. Into the sheet pan. My oven's at 170 Celsius. I'm going to put it in there for about 35-40 minutes, and then we'll come back, have a look. Let's take a look at our cakes and see if they're baked. So I think the cakes are ready now. You see a well-developed structure. It feels nice and light and airy. So the cakes are done now. So just to make sure, we can do a toothpick test. Put a little skewer inside and it comes out clean. And that's an indication that the cakes are now done. So as soon as the cakes come out of the oven, we'll have a glazing rack ready. And this is an exception because you want to keep the cakes upside down so the cake does not concave in. So we'll just place it on a glazing rack so there's air circulation from underneath until the cakes are completely cool. And then we'll take them off and we'll unmold them. So now that the angel food cake has come to room temperature, you see, it's nice and soft. We're going to try to unmold this. So the best way is to gently go around the edges and clear the cake. Please make sure you do not cut into the cake. Okay, so walk the knife edge along the edge of the mold or the cake pan and make sure it's released. And we're going to give it one nice release, and there it is. So that's your angel food cake. You see, it's a nice golden brown all around, nice and even structure, and you see how moist and soft the texture is. This is how it should be. When an angel food cake is served, the crust or the top of the cake is normally to the bottom because that's where the crust formation is. So if the crust was on top, because of the delicate texture, you would force the structure of the cake to compress. So therefore the crust acts as a base and the soft part of the cake is on the top for us to easily cut it. So the texture and the structure of the cake is so inviting. I can't wait to see the interior and to indulge. So we have to very delicately try to maintain the structure of the cake and slice it through. And you see the crust, a nice even uniform texture. You see how moist it is? It's a great summer springtime cake. And for those of you who are very health conscious, here's some good news, it's fat free. It's a wonderful light dessert. It's a wonderful light cake to be served with some marinated fruits, berries, and it's really, really light and refreshing. So to finish, you can lightly dust it with powdered sugar and can be served with some marinated berries, some strawberries, and some fresh cream. Enjoy.